Hello, my friends, the great bead extravaganza friends. I believe this is the last session for this summer's great bead extravaganza. My name is Francesca Watson, and if you don't know me, I'm coming to you live from the Makery in the Texas Hill Country outside San Antonio. I see folks jumping into the comments. Hello. I believe that we are live in many places. So wherever you are watching from, either the Great Bead Extravaganza's YouTube channel or the Makery's YouTube channel or the Facebook pages, welcome. You should be able to comment and I should be able to see and respond. I will do my best to keep up with the comments as they come in. I have this nifty little overlay thing. My thanks to my friend Kate Richburg, who taught me how to do that. Thank you for that, with some things I will talk about later on. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be showing you how to make this lovely pendant. Now, this is a pendant I actually made. I'll tell you a little story. In the summer of 2023, my studio burned down and I was working in my home studio while we got our new studio location set up. I would imagine that there were folks in this community who were part of helping us get back on our feet. And so I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you. We had literally thousands of people from all over the world rally to help us get back on our feet. And this was maybe not the first, but one of the first projects that I did while I was working in my home studio. And this was something that we did for my online subscriber group. And so these are projects that I broadcast live. I took the video from this pendant. It was a 4-hour project and I edited it down to 32 minutes. And so I will just tell you, I'm going to share that with you today. We're going to walk through it together. I'm going to talk while it's showing. I'll try to explain some things. I can pause and answer questions if we really get in the weeds. But I've left plenty of room on the backside for you guys to ask questions. In one of my earlier Great Bead Extravaganza presentations, I did a whole thing about setting up a soldering station. If you are not yet a part of that group, let me encourage you to join. You can get there by going to Facebook, looking for groups and searching for the Great Bead Extravaganza. The file for that setting up a home soldering station is in the files section of that group. It is completely free. And so I would encourage you to head over there and become part of that. Hello. Teresa says, I love the shorter hair. You look fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate that. I see lots of folks jumping in and saying hello. While we are getting ourselves settled, I will just show you that this is the kind of thing that we do from time to time in my group. This is next weekend's project. These are a couple of pairs of earrings that I've been working on during our work-alongs. And then this is the project we're going to work on today. So before we jump in, does anybody have any questions that I need to answer about how we're doing this before we jump in? Looks like we have a lot of folks online. I'm grateful for that. Thank you. If we don't have any questions, I'm going to try not to clear my throat in your ear. Take a little sip of water, and we are going to jump right in. Let me get myself sorted here. And here is the video. Let me turn off. I'm going to turn off that. All right, ready? Let me see. No, apparently I'm not ready. I'm sorry. Bear with me. There and there. All right, so the first order of business when you're making something like a pendant is to choose your stone. This is a beautiful piece of Sonoran dendritic agate. Sorry, Sonoran dendritic rhyolite. And I'm using a pair of dividers to find the highest part of the girdle. That's important because that's going to dictate how tall our bezel needs to be. And then I'm going to use that pair of dividers against a strip of fine silver bezel wire to make sure that it's tall enough. I'm going to wrap that around the stone just to make sure that I've got enough. I always leave a little extra because I want a little bit of an overlap. And then I'm going to flatten it because I want this bezel wire to be exactly the right height for the stone. I'm going to use that setting on the dividers that I already dialed in to scribe a line down that bezel wire. And then I'm just going to trim it to size with a pair of sharp metal shears. Those are not regular scissors. They do look a little bit like regular scissors, but those are metal shears. You can see that line. And I'm just cutting very carefully. Notice also that I'm taking my time. Then I'm going to use a pair of flush cutters to trim the end of that bezel wire. I'm going to get as close to a right angle as I can, but you'll see in a minute it doesn't really matter. Close is fine. And I'm going to clip that off. And then I'm going to use a small needle file to just clean up that end. Make sure it's really flat. And then I'm going to wrap that trimmed bezel strip around the stone. And you'll see that there's an overlap when we get all the way around. And I'm going to move that trimmed end, the end I've cleaned up, to the outside. And I've marked that cleaned end with a dot so I don't get confused. I'm going to use that cleaned edge as a guide to mark where I'm going to cut that bezel flush. So I'm just going to wrap it around again. And I'm going to use a scribe to mark that. Again, I'm just tracing the cut end of that bezel. And you can see that there's a little line there that lines up perfectly with the end I've already cleaned up and cut. So then I'll use a pair of flush cutters again, coming in. And you can actually feel the edge of that, the edge of the line with the cutter so you can get it really lined up well. And then cut. Now I'm just going to flatten that gently with a pair of pliers. And again, I'm going to use a small file to clean that end up. If you're just joining us, welcome. Don't hesitate to drop questions in the chat. And right there you see we've got a perfectly aligned seam. It lines up perfectly. There's a straight line across the top and a straight line across the bottom. That seam is going to be just perfect. Both sides match. Now I'm going to put a small piece of solder on my soldering board, and I'm going to put the seam right on top of it. Spray a little bit of flux. Gently warming and fluxing. The flux helps to keep the metal clean and it helps the solder flow. And then I'm going to concentrate the flame in front of that seam. I want to warm up the whole thing, but I really want to concentrate the heat just in front of that seam. So I'm bouncing the heat into that seam. Okay? I want to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on the back of the bezel so the reflected heat doesn't melt that bezel in the back. And I'm just going to heat that until the solder flows. Again, just concentrating the heat on the front. You can see that I've got a successful solder. That solder pulled all the way through the seam. I've got a blob on the outside, but I'm not going to clean that up yet. I'm going to wait till the end to clean that up. So now I'm fitting it around the stone. And I want to make sure that that bezel is really a good fit, that all of the material is distributed evenly around the stone. The widest part of the stone is at the base, at the bottom. I see folks jumping in and saying, hello, hello. And so I'm using the flat side of these pliers to just press that bezel wire up against the bottom of the stone. And you can see that that's a pretty good fit. So now I'm going to sand the bottom. It needs to be completely flat. I've got my fingers pressing that down onto just a piece of sandpaper on a flat surface. I'm going in different directions. I'm making sure that I'm turning that bezel to make sure that the pressure is even all the way around. You can do circles, you can do figure eights, but you're looking for a very even, clean scratch pattern on the bottom of that bezel. You shouldn't see anything that looks shiny. Welcome to all of you that are just jumping on. What grid is the sandpaper, says Teresa? I think that was 220. And now I'm putting this on a soldering block to make sure that I have gotten it completely flat. I shouldn't see any light. And I'm using a rounded file to just knock off the burr that's on the inside of that bezel. There's always a little bit of a burr when you've been sanding or filing. Now, because I've had my hands all over it, I want to make sure that I refit it around the stone. I'm going to put it around the stone. I'm using a burnisher this time to just conform it up against the stone. I don't want to push it over the stone. I just want to make sure that it's right up against it. And you'll see when I flip it over, I have a fantastic fit. It fits perfectly. No big gaps. It's a perfect fit. This is one of those steps you really want to take your time, because if you don't, it won't fit later. This is one of those things you really want to take that extra couple of minutes to just make sure it's right. So there's a good fit. Now I'm going to mark a spot on the back of the stone to line up with the seam, because although this stone looks symmetrical, it's not. And I don't want to panic later when I can't get the stone into the bezel. This will tell me how to fit that stone into the bezel at the end. Now I'm going to carefully lift that off. And from this point forward, I'm not even going to use my fingertips. I'm certainly not going to go all the way across. I'm going to use a small pair of tweezers, because anything at this point, even just my fingertips, could wind up pressing that out of shape. This is not yet a stable form. I'm going to use tweezers, and the goal is for this to just drop over the stone. It should just fit like a perfect little black dress, and that just drops into place. Hello from Arizona. Hello, Arizona. Okay, so I have put the metal for my back plate. Before somebody asks, I think that I used 20 gauge for this. Not 100% sure, but I think it was 20 gauge. I warmed and fluxed the metal. The flux, again, is going to help to keep the metal clean, help to keep it from oxidizing. I'm using a spray flux. And all of this was done with the butane torch. I showed you guys torches the last time I was with you. All of this is being done with a butane torch. Hello, Georgia. Hello, Virginia. And I'm protecting both sides of this metal, front and back, with a fine coating of spray flux. So what you're looking for is a very smooth, even, fine coating. So Wendy says, I've been looking forward to seeing you all weekend. Thank you. Now I'm going to use those tweezers. I'm going to drop it on the back plate, the bezel on the back plate. You're going to see daylight. Do not panic. It's still flat. The problem is the flux is not completely flat, and it'll all settle down in a minute. Hello, Maryland is in the house. So I'm just going to use my tweezers to kind of nudge it into shape where I want it. And now I'm going to warm and flux the whole thing again. And you'll be able to see as that flux begins to warm up, I'm adding a little bit more spray flux. California's in the house. You can see that that bezel settles down and that daylight goes away, right? The bezel has now settled directly to the back plate. And it's now sort of glued, and I put glued in quotes, right, in place on that back plate. So it's not going to slide around. I'm using those little tweezers to put small pallions of wire solder up against the inside of the bezel. I want to make sure it's also touching the back plate. And you need less solder than you think you do. Tennessee in the house. Michigan. So I'm putting basically one piece on each side of this bezel. And then I'm going to warm this whole thing up. And I'm going to change the angle of the flame. Once this is all good and warmed up, I'm going to change the angle of the flame so that I am bouncing it off of the soldering surface to the underside of the piece. I see a lot of folks in these Facebook groups who say, ugh, I melted my bezel again. How did I do that? Well, don't heat from the top. You heat from underneath. That little nest captures the heat. You can see it all glowing. You can see the flux going glassy. That means that it's getting close to solder temperature. And I am watching those little solder pallions like a hawk. I'm watching them like a hawk. Note that I'm still keeping that flame along the edge until I see it start to flow. And now I bring the flame up and circle it around, just pointing at the seam so that I can pull that solder around the seam as it flows. So do you see how clean the metal is? It's got kind of a candy coating from the flux. And as I'm looking at it, I see that there's one spot that maybe needs a little bit more solder. So I'm going to put one more little piece of solder in here. It's not a problem, easy to do. I'd rather add a little bit than have to clean a whole bunch up. And then I'm just going to reflow everything. I see Canada's in the house, Hotlanta, Finger Lakes, New York, my old stomping grounds. So because this was still really hot, it doesn't take very long to get that to flow. That last little piece of solder. Now that corner got hot, and that's a really good example of what happens when the flux burns out and the metal gets too hot. I'm not too worried about it because I'm going to be trimming this off. And now I'm going to use a Sharpie marker to trace around the bezel so I've got a good line to follow to saw this out. Now when you're sawing, the easiest way to get to the saw blade into the material is to make a V with the material and the edge of your bench pin. So that when you draw down with that saw blade, that blade has no place to go but in the material. Now, I sped up this part because the actual sawing took me about, I'm trying to remember how much I edited, about 5 minutes. And so you don't want to sit here and watch me saw for 5 minutes. I sped it up, but I will just tell you that sawing is one of those things that people either love or hate. It is really necessary if you're going to be a metalsmith to learn to saw, and just take your time. It can be very zen. It really makes a difference in the quality of your pieces. You certainly could trim this with metal shears, but metal shears compress your metal. They really do change up the edge. And learning to saw is just one of those things I highly recommend. Couple things. Make sure you always support both sides of the metal when you're sawing. Keep the saw blade moving steadily. Take your time. Turn both the metal and the saw blade. It's a dance, okay? And don't rush. Take your time. So you can see that I moved it over to that other area where I had a little bit more support for the metal. And now I have gotten a burr on both the front and the back. I'm going to pause here for 1 second because Susan says something that I hear a lot. I've never been able to learn to saw. I break so many blades. Susan, I can help you with that. and I hear that a lot. 9 times out of 10, the issue is tension and that you're pushing the blade. That is really something that we can talk about. At the end of this video, I'll talk a little bit about this if you'll remind me, Susan, okay? So when you saw or file, you tend to get a little bit of a burr where the metal drags. So front and back, I've got a little bit of a burr. And the edges, you can really see the burr right there. And I've got all of that particulate on my fingers, all that silver dust. So now I'm going to take a flat file and I'm just going to gently file those edges. I want them completely perpendicular. And the way to file is to take long strokes and push from the palm of your hand. I have the base of that file seated into the palm of my hand, and I'm just pushing long strokes. I'm holding the piece against a slanted surface, and I'm pushing long strokes. Filing, like sawing, is one of those essential skills, and it does take a minute to learn how to do it well. One would think it's not that complicated, but it does take a minute. I see new folks jumping on. Hello, hello, Northwest Florida in the house. Southwest Florida, love that. So you can see I'm taking my time, I'm following the curves. I don't want to bite off a lot of material. I really just want to make the whole thing smooth. And there you can see now those edges look really clean, really smooth. Now I'm going to work on the back of the piece. Tennessee. This is a jewel tool. And look at that. Here, Teresa is asking perfectly. I did not pay her for this. I'm going to use the jewel tool for the back. I'm starting with a scratch eraser. I love the fact that I can see through the discs so that I can get this perfectly cleaned up. That's going to take care of the burr. And I'm changing direction so that I don't get any drag lines. Teresa's asking if I do the filing by hand. I tend to like to file by hand, but that's me. This is just a radial bristle disc. It's a larger version of the kind of things you use in your Dremels or your flex shafts. And I'm going to use this to get rid of the burr on the front now. I'm getting a nice even finish all the way around. So I'm just going to hold. This is just evening all of that stuff out. And I may have edited out the part where I do the front. But you can get that right. Oh, there we go. And now I'm going to switch to a satin wheel. Teresa, if you'll remember to ask me that question about doing the edges by hand, I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. This is just going to blend everything and give me a beautiful satin finish on the back. Look at that gorgeous finish. Now I'm going to make the bail. I'm going to use a piece of rectangle wire, and I'm using round nose pliers to just make a loop on the end. And then I'm just going to bend up the opposite end in the other direction, just using a flat nose plier, just a little bit up. The idea being that I want it to sit completely flat on a flat surface. So that's the bail on the back of the piece. Stacy, I see your question about soldering. Will you remember and ask me that when we get to the end of this video? So now I'm going to warm and flux the back of this piece. I have it not sitting on the nest because I don't want to heat it from underneath. I'm warming and fluxing the back of the piece. Again, I want a really good fine coating. And I'm going to place that little bail so that it is right where I need it to go. And because I made sure that that flux was really flat, I don't have to hold this. I'm a big fan of letting heat and gravity do the work for you. Huge fan of letting heat and gravity do the work. Now I'm going to warm and flux all of this again. I'm going to give it a little bit more flux. Again, the flux sort of serves as a glue to hold it in place, in addition to protecting the metal. And now, because it's kind of glued into place, I can take these little tweezers and tuck tiny pieces of solder into the inside of those curves, kind of out of the way. And you'll see in a minute when I go to do the solder at the top curve, I actually catch the bail with the tip of the tweezers, and the whole thing moves, not just the bail. So I don't knock it out. That flux is really doing its job. That little piece of solder went flying off. You see how the whole thing moves? That bail did not move out of position because the flux is kind of holding it in place. So it's just a little bit of extra. I mean, it's not foolproof, don't get me wrong, but it's just a little bit of extra insurance when you're placing those little pieces of solder so that pieces are not sliding all over the place. So I want to be careful now. I don't want to heat the bail. I want to heat the larger piece. If I heat the bail directly, it is a smaller mass of metal and it's going to heat up much more quickly. Teresa's asking what kind of flux this is. I use Pepe's Smart Flux. It's a spray flux that is based on the Prips recipe from the 70s. John Pripp from the University of Rochester. And so you can see the flame is kind of lingering down at the bottom of that piece. And I'm really trying to keep it away from the bail. And there you saw the solder go at that top curve. And while that solder is molten, I can move that bail under the flame. So now it's time to set the stone. It's all pickled and cleaned up. I am using something called a bezel roller. It is a flat, flared piece of brass. And I'm always starting at the corners. The corners are where that bezel is going to get most compressed. And so I want to start at where that tightest spot is going to happen first. I have that tool seated into the palm of my hand, and I'm pressing pretty firmly. It's on a piece of leather because I want to make sure that I'm protecting the back. And you can see that now I've gotten that over right up against that curve. You can also see that the bezel is starting to bulge out. There's going to be another view here in a minute. That'll be really evident. Barbara's asking which flux? Pepe Smart Flux. So again, I'm really just working these corners. I'm starting at almost straight into that bezel. The goal here is to get the bezel conformed to the stone. And although that leather is sort of in my way a little bit, it's really protecting the back of that pendant from getting marked up. So there's another corner done. You have to trust the process here because it doesn't look good while you're doing it. And so you have to trust that you're going to get where you need to go. So here's the final corner. And I'm exerting a fair amount of pressure. You got to take your time. You're pressing in and rocking. So now that I've got all the corners done, I'm going to use that same approach and I'm going to make a hard spot in one of the long sides. I'm pressing in and then raising my hand up so that I am forcing that bezel to follow the form of the stone. So I'm going in, rocking, and raising my hand to press it up against the stone. That's in the middle of those straightaways. And in a second, I'll show you what that looks like. Here's why we're doing that. We've now compressed the metal at the tips, at the corners. See all those bulges? We have now created hard spots in the middle of those runways, right? At this point, you're probably looking at this going, are you kidding me? But we are now going to work from the corners into that hard spot. Think of it like easing a seam. So I'm literally just going to roll this. I'm pressing in and rocking. And I'm going to lay that bezel down between the two hard points. The hard point at the corner and the hard point I created in the middle. And I'm going to go all the way around. I'm basically connecting those dots, right? If the corner is a dot and the hard spot in the middle is a dot, and I know that this is a little tough to see because I've got my hands all over it. But you can see the bezel just kind of lay down. See how you just kind of lay that down? I'm going to do that all the way around. And I'm working from, again, the corners into the hard spot. If I worked from the hard spot to the corner, I could get a pucker. If any of you are sewers, you know that when you're working a piece of fabric into a corner, you have to be careful to kind of gather it up so that it doesn't all pucker when you get to that tight corner. So I'm working these long lengths. I'm using that as a way to distribute. Don't slip. Did you see me slip? Oh, I did it again. It happens, guys. Oh, thanks. Wendy likes the ring I'm wearing. Thank you. Now I'm changing my angle. Okay. So I'm rocking it and I'm raising my hand up as I come around because I really want to get that bezel up and over. So now you can see this is a really steep angle. Okay. I really want the top edge of that bezel against the stone. So to do a really good job setting a stone, even a simple one like this, can take you 15 or 20 minutes. This is a severely edited, this was taught live. As I said, it was 4 hours, start to finish. You really want to take your time with this. This part alone can take you 15 or 20 minutes. And now I'm going to take the back side of a curved burnisher, then I've got it down, and I'm just going to kind of scrub with the back of that curve pretty firmly against that bezel. This is going to do a couple of things. It's going to help smooth out the metal where I may have made some tool marks. Again, this is fine silver. So it's going to smooth that out, but it's also going to compress. You can see I'm feeling with my finger there. There's a little bit of a burr. Anytime you're kind of moving or manipulating metal, you're going to get like a little bulge. So I'm actually compressing that bulge back down into the main mass of the metal. Sorry, my fingers are in the way there. And however I have to brace this is how I'm going to brace it. And I'm kind of scrubbing. I'm scrubbing pretty hard. In addition to kind of smoothing out that burr, this is also the final step of compressing that bezel up against the stone. I want to make sure that it's really up against the stone. And again, you're going to take your time with this, right? Take your time to get it really well done. Now I'm going to use the tip of that burnisher, and I'm going to do the same thing on the top edge of the bezel. I'm going to go all the way around. If you think about a bezel, it's a strip of metal, so it's got a rectangular top. And as I've been compressing it, those edges kind of flare up. So I'm just going to press them down to make a nice, smooth, clean frame around that stone. This is a scratch eraser for the flex shaft. And I'm just using it, again, it kind of blends all of the marks out. So I'm going to get kind of a nice satin finish all the way around. Sarah says, do you have any tips for how to prevent slipping and gouging your piece when burnishing? Asking for a friend. True disclosure, you guys, Sarah is one of the tech assistants here in the studio. She cracks me up. I will remind me and I will answer that question. So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off camera here. I'm just kind of smoothing all the way around. And look at how you've got a nice satin finish all the way around that bezel. Now, this is one of my favorite tips, you guys. I'm going to use a nail buff. That green side has a very slight abrasive. Look at that. Very slight abrasive. So I'm going to go all the way around and just kind of even that out. And then when I flip it over, you'll see in just a second, the white side of that leaves a high shine. So I have some of those here. I'll show you. We can kind of play with them just so you can get a sense of how awesome they are. I believe I included a link to that in when I did the setting up your soldering station. And there's the piece. There it is. Ta-da! All right. Let me remind you guys that that was 4 hours. We did it in 33 minutes, I think. I'll show you again. We'll go back to the overhead. This is the actual piece. Now, I'm going to get full disclosure because that's how I roll. This was 3 years ago. I found it in a drawer in what was my home studio. And I've got my fingerprints all over it. I did take this and clean it up on the jewel tool because it was a hot mess. It had been sitting in, I don't know what, it was absolutely black. So I did clean it up and polish it with the jewel tool, but this is the piece. This is a beginner project. When I teach my beginners how to do this, this is one of the things I teach them. Creating a bezel, setting a bezel, making sure that it's right, making sure that it's solid, right? This stone is not moving or rocking or clicking or rattling or any of that. You can make your own bail. We did a whole series recently about making your own bails. This is not yet soldered on. This is an example of a bail. So you really can do anything. I promise you, you can do anything. So we had a couple of questions. I asked you guys to kind of make note and remind me when we got to this part. If you'll drop those in the chat, let me scroll back and see if I can find some of those. This is a really good one. When soldering, do you tend to hold the torch in your dominant or non-dominant hand? So guys, I'm gonna pop some popcorn and let's have a minute. There are 1,000,001 Facebook groups out there for metalsmiths, and you would just be amazed. People have very strong opinions about a lot of things, okay? This is my opinion about this. This is not gospel. This is an opinion, okay? My opinion. I think you should hold your torch in your non-dominant hand, and here's why. You're basically doing this. You can do this with your dumb hand, your non-dominant hand, right? You can train your dumb hand to do this. This is basically what you're doing. That leaves your smart hand available to do fine things. So if I need to move something under the flame, my fine motor skills are more likely to be well-tuned in my dominant hand, okay? So that is my opinion. For what that's worth, I'm sure that there are people out there who do a perfectly fine job holding the torch in their dominant hand. That's a matter of preference, but my recommendation, especially when you're starting out, non-dominant hand, so you can use your smart hand for other things. Teresa wanted to know, I found it, Could you use the jewel tool for this part? She was talking about the filing of the part, or do you recommend doing it by hand? So here's the deal. I love my jewel tool. I use it on just about every project that I work on. I love my jewel tool. When you are just starting out, filing and shaping a piece can be a little bit challenging on the jewel tool because it works so quickly and efficiently. As you get more experienced with it, absolutely use the jewel tool, but it would be very easy to go too far and take a lot of that off, okay? So that's an it depends. I kind of tend for simple refinements like what I was doing in the video to just do it by hand. I like filing. I know I'm a weirdo. Either or, there is no right answer, but as you're learning, using non-motorized things to get the job done is going to help you understand better what's happening. That's, again, a personal opinion. Sarah, bless your heart. Do you have any tips for how to prevent slipping and gouging your piece when burnishing? Clearly not, because if you look at the video, I did it myself. The answer is, let me grab a burnisher here. Here's a burnisher. That, you know, if I'm doing this and I'm pressing down, the pressure tends to go this way, right? So if I was burnishing this way, where the pressure is kind of up against the stone, I might have better luck. The problem with that is that you can't see what you're doing quite so well. But that, if you're really having a hard time, that's what I would recommend. That you work so that your pressure is not going in this direction, but your pressure is going in towards the stone. That's my tip for that. Okay, sawing. Susan, here's the deal. I'm going to give this to you quick and dirty, but the sawing is one of those things that I talk about with my students a lot because it is a skill that I really believe every metalsmith should have. Couple of things. First thing is your hold. If you hold your saw like this and you try to bring it around in front of you, even if you're not a person of girth like I am, you go to bring it around like this, it's very hard to get it in front of you. So I recommend holding it more like a bowed instrument, and just kind of resting it up against your thumb. And that way, when you're turning it, you're literally just rocking it in your fingers. The other benefit to this is that you're not gripping it like that. And gripping it like that, 9 times out of 10, is what causes the problem, okay? Tension really causes a problem. The other thing, and I'll give you a super quick and dirty, you guys are gonna get to see, this is how I really teach. This is my favorite whiteboard, is my bench block. You do not have to push a saw blade. The shape of the saw blade is this, okay? And do you see how these points are kind of angled? This is a really bad rushed picture. Please don't at me. These are angled, and so as you are going into the material, this is the material you're sawing, as it bites into the material, it is literally pulling that blade forward. So as you draw down, that blade is traveling, and that it wants to travel in that direction. And so all you have to do is steer, is to keep that blade straight up and down. Make sure that there are at least 2 or 3 teeth inside the material. Okay? At least 2 or 3 inside the material. And draw straight down. Okay? Think about a piece of fabric being drawn down through a hole. You wouldn't yank it down. You wouldn't, right? You wouldn't do any of that. You're going to draw it down, reposition your hand. Draw it down, reposition your hand. So that combination of things, how you're holding the saw, how you're drawing it down through the material, are you using the right size blade? Are you sitting up straight with your feet on the ground, neutral position? Are you breathing? I know. When I first started out, I learned to saw from a guy named Tom Mann, who is an extraordinary artist, but he's kind of a hard taskmaster, and he scared the crap out of me, frankly. And I broke a lot of blades. As you practice, you're going to break a lot of blades. And so don't beat yourself up over it. It happens. Pay attention to your grip. Find one that works for you. If this one, if the holding a bow doesn't work for you, find one that does. Make sure that you can be relaxed as you work. Draw it down slowly through the material. Take your time. And if that doesn't work, shoot me an email and we'll see if we can help you. Can you see my earrings? Yes, you can see my earrings. These are concho. Let me take one off. I will take one off. Turquoise bead wire and a concho that I made in my hydraulic press with a little ball detail. Let's see. Teresa says, thank you for the answer. Your opinion makes sense. You can get the basics and understand why you're doing what you need to do. Yes. I try to think of it like the two lumberjacks just pulling back and forth. Wendy, you're talking about sawing? I think you might, whoops, Susan says I'm either cussing or holding my breath. I get it. That might be part of the problem. Like, I could get behind the cussing because we've all been there, but don't hold your breath. Breathe. If you feel yourself getting tense, breathe. Wendy says, I try to think of it like the two lumberjacks just pulling back and forth. Here's the thing. If you're pulling on the up, you may have, I don't know, if it's working for you, don't listen to me. If it's working for you, seriously, don't listen to me. But if you're struggling with it, really, truly try to think of it as a drawing down. That fabric analogy has really helped me to kind of think about it. It's a drawing down of the blade, and the up is just repositioning to draw down again. Okay? Kyla says, how difficult is it to resolder a small dangly bail without hurting the stone? Or actually it's bone setting, bone. I'm not sure I'm understanding that correctly. Kyla, this is, again, a me thing. If you need to resolder a small dangly bit or any kind of a bit near a stone, take out the stone. Don't solder with stones in place. Here's why I say that. I'm not saying it's impossible to do it, but most of the stones I work with are very sensitive to heat. Turquoise, for example, absolutely not. Don't do it. White buffalo. This is white buffalo. Absolutely not. Howlite. Absolutely not. Just unset the stone, solder on what you need to do, and reset the stone. You can always clean up that setting afterwards. Jamie Vosberg says, can you please talk about what files you're using? Hi, Jamie. Size and brand. So yeah, let me show you. And guys, this is my actual teaching setup. This is the camera setting I use for my teaching. I am mostly using Grobet files. If you're only going to buy one file to start with, buy a half round, because you basically get two files in one. You get a flat side and a rounded side, and that's very useful to have. But my very favorite is a Barrett file. It has no teeth on the back side. It's angled so that you can get into tight spaces. There's just something about this one that I really like. Grobet Italian is the one I'm currently using. It's not the cheapest file, but it's not the most expensive either. It's good quality. And there are a million types, guys. Seriously, a million types. I would say at the end of the day, if you have a flat file, these are all number 2 cuts, which is a coarseness, a flat file, a flat half round, and a Barrett, you're going to be in good shape. That would be my recommendation. Let's see what other comments we're getting. Tell me more about the scratch eraser buff, please. I've never seen that. Okay, so this is a product that our friend Ani from Jewel Tool developed, and she has, let me grab one. This is what it looks like when it's on the Jewel Tool. This is exactly the same material, and you could see, you can see that I've used this one a fair amount because it started out looking like this, and now it looks like this. And basically what it does is it burnishes the surface of the metal. And it smooths it out. And I absolutely love this material. I use this pretty much all the time. So there you go. Somebody's asking about the handles. Do they come with the handles? They do not. You must drink a bottle of Prosecco or find a friend who does. And then you drill a hole and you drive the tang. Let me see if I have one that doesn't have a handle on it to show you. There's a tang. I do. Hang on a second. This is what the tang looks like. And so you just drill a hole in the Prosecco cork. If you've got a local wine bar, see if they'll save you some. And then these fit beautifully. Let me pull this out a little bit. When I'm filing, this fits perfectly in the heel of my hand for filing. So those are the files that I use. Let's see what other questions. I just got a used hook tool. I'm so sorry. Sharon, I don't understand the question. Sorry. Barbara is saying, will your PDF be available? Yes, the PDF is available. The PDF for setting up your soldering station is in the group, The Great Bead Extravaganza on Facebook. It is available. That group is free. The PDF is free. Please head over there and join. We will let you in. You can grab that PDF for you. But let me also take a moment to make a pitch, right? So guys, I'm just going to be completely honest with you and tell you that like self-promotion is the thing I least like to do. I love to teach. That's all I want to do is teach. I have an online subscriber group. Right now, the monthly cost is $15 a month. For $15 a month, you get a complete project, the full 4 hours, okay? Not the edited version, the full 4 hours. You can watch live. You can watch the recording later if you want to. We have what we call office hours where we do troubleshooting. You can ask questions. I can help you with problems you're having at your bench. Once a quarter, we do a beginner's office hour. So if you are just starting out and you need help setting things up, that's the place where you can ask all those questions you're afraid to ask in those Facebook groups because somebody's mad at you because you asked the question. You absolutely can ask whatever questions you want in either office hours. There are no stupid questions. And then we do a work along from my bench. And so these are some of the pieces that I'm working on currently that I showed you at the kind of the top of the hour. These are just pieces that I'm making of my own. And I just turn on the cameras and invite you guys into my bench. You're working at your bench. I'm working at my bench. You get all of that and recordings of all of that. Plus this year, our friend Ani is doing a monthly live with us where she is taking the projects that I made last month and putting a professional finish on them. So you get to see the actual piece I made. We mail that off to her and she makes it beautiful. Okay. All of that is recorded. All of that is in a library. We have 60 projects currently, over 430 hours of recorded content. And we just rolled out a searchable index. So if you want to know about bezel setting, you can go to the searchable thing and you can do a search for bezel setting and it will pull up every place we talk about bezel setting. It will take you right to the video. Okay. We've got an online community. We have a Facebook group, but there are a lot of people who don't want to be on Facebook anymore, and I get it. So we have an online community hub that is not on Facebook. All of that, $15 a month. Guys, here's the thing. If you are watching today, and it is before July 31st, 2026, there is a code here, TGBE Summer. Will get you 50% off 1 month, but it expires on the 31st because on August 1st, you guys, the price is going up. I kept it as low as I could for as long as I could. For a long time, we just did it on a donation basis. Like if you can't pay, don't pay, but we couldn't do that anymore. And so on August 1st, the price is going up to $25. $25 a month I still think is a screaming deal. I know that there are other people out there teaching online. I think $25 is a really good deal. But if you are subscribed, even if you use this coupon to get your first month at 50% off, $7.50, guys, that's like a Starbucks. Okay. If you are subscribed when we flip the switch on August 1st, you will be $15 a month for as long as you stay a subscriber. We're going to grandfather you in. Okay. Where do you go to do this? Go to makery.link/subscribe. That will take you right to the page on our learning platform that will give you more information. You can sign up to pay monthly. You can sign up to pay annually. There is no discount if you pay annually. I cannot, you guys, I wish that I could provide a discount for annual. I just can't. The cost of providing this is I'm already not covering the cost, which is why we had to come up with the higher price. Okay. So unfortunately, no discount, but for your convenience, you are welcome to pay monthly, annually, whatever works for you. And again, once you are subscribed at the current rate, that is your rate for as long as you remain a subscriber. I see that some of my folks are in the room. Thank you guys. Leanne, thank you so much. Karen, thank you. I just am really, thank you. Thank you. So there you go. That's the pitch. I'm not selling anything else. I don't have any kits. I don't have any tools. It's just me. I'm offering me. You can come learn with us every month. Our project this next month is this, but we also have a complete beginner series that talks about tools and setting up your soldering station and which torches and all the information that you could possibly need, plus the office hours, plus access to me in the Facebook group and on the community platform to answer any questions that you may have about getting started. I know that this is one of those things that can be a little bit intimidating. Okay. You can also find us on social media. I am at Jewelry Instructor on Facebook and Instagram. I do not have a TikTok. I do not have a Twitch. I don't even know what those, whatever. I don't know what those are. At Makery Arts on Facebook and Instagram. We do have a YouTube channel and we are absolutely broadcasting to that today, but there probably won't be anything on our YouTube channel until the next Great Bead Extravaganza. I don't understand YouTube. I know it's like I have some technical expertise, but not a whole lot. Sorry. I'm sorry. Or you could just go to our website up there in the right-hand corner, www.makeryarts.com, and you can get to all of the information from there. Karen, bless you. Thank you. Teaching is really the thing I'm passionate about. And I would love for you to join us. Listen, seriously, guys, $750 will get you in for a month. It'll give you a chance to poke around, ask some questions, see what you think. If you join now, you'll get to see next week's project before that price goes up, and you can decide if it's something you want to continue doing. Absolutely, totally up to you. There is no pressure. I have just committed to continuing with TGBE for next year. So we're still going to be doing these broadcasts once a quarter. I would love to have you join us for that. Does anybody have any other questions? Did I miss anybody? Again, you can find the PDF that we did where we talked about setting up a home soldering station, torches, all of that stuff, and the video from that broadcast, that TGBE session, is on the Great Bead Extravaganza YouTube channel. You can still find that. If you go to the Great Bead Extravaganza group on Facebook, that is where you can find that file. My gift to you, absolutely no cost or obligation. That's what I got. Folks are saying, thanks so much. I learned a lot. I'm glad, Debbie. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for coming. I know you've got lots and lots of places you could be on a Sunday evening. Thanks to all of you who reached out to us this week during the flooding. On behalf of everybody at the Great Bead Extravaganza, this is something that we do because we love this community. We love teaching. We love giving back. I am very, very grateful to have been invited to be a part of this team. Super, super, super excited to be continuing with TGBE. Susan, welcome to the family. Susan says, I just signed up. Yay! Welcome to the family. Thank you very much, Barbara. Appreciate it. Wendy, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. On that note, I'm going to do the normal sign off. This is my normal sign off. It's how I sign off every broadcast. We say, wash your hands, keep them to yourselves, and love others well. Mwah. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of TGBE. Thanks for being part of this weekend. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.